What's up there, workforce? Chris here with Work To Game, and I'm about to go over 4 things that it is quite likely you have either been doing wrong or maybe didn't know about if you are new to Final Fantasy XIV. Now, if you've been playing for a while, it's still possible that you don't know all 4 of these, so stick around, let's dive in. Now, the first one is selling items on the market board for below vendor price. So let me show you a quick way to check that and a quick way to avoid it. So if I go to sell items in my inventory on the market and I try to sell these Holy Rainbow gloves, I say put up for sale, it's going to default to the vendor price. But let's say for a second I typed in here and I don't know how to get back to it. I can go to compare prices and I can see these things, but you'll see in the tooltip either there, or if I don't do compare prices, I can see it right here in my inventory, or even right here on the asking price, it says sells for 107 gil. So anything less than 107 gil doesn't make sense. So if I go to compare prices, and let's just say for a second that this was 90 gil instead of 107, there are people selling these things regularly at or below vendor price depending on the item. This is particularly common with certain crafting materials, certain types of less desirable materia, and things like that. And you either need to find an alternative use for those items, such as desynthesis, turning the materia into different materia or something like that, or you just need to vendor it. But I don't want to go to the vendor, so I'll just list it here. No, you can literally right click and I can have retainer sell items. If I click that, it will vendor this item right now. It just sent that off to the vendor. But oh no, I just vendored something that had value. Well, if I try to leave right here, it's going to say, if I do this, it's going to lose that item forever. But no, that's not right. Item buyback, and I can go here and I can buy it back at the vendor price. So vendor price is incredibly important to keep in mind of. Keep in mind that when you sell something, if I sell this titanium ball peen hammer for 1300 gil, I don't get 1300 gil. I get 1300 gil minus the auction house fee, the market board fee. Now that fee sometimes varies and you'll see it reduced by a certain percent or whatever, but at the end of the day, I'm getting something less than that 1300. So even listing it at vendor price is a mistake. I am literally saying I would rather wait some random amount of time to get vendor price, which I could get instantly, minus the cut. So even if the cut was 0, you could still have it right now. So it doesn't make any sense to list things at or below vendor price. The second is the delivery fee, and this has to do with shopping. Now, the market board fee is incurred on the seller side. So if I sold that hammer, I'm going to receive something less than 1300 gil, even though you paid 1300 gil. So that is something non-negotiable. So we could get into kind of how those fees are and when they vary and stuff, but that doesn't really matter because they are what they are. You can't control them. So regardless of if Square Enix announced that those were going up, there's nothing you can do about it. So let's not worry about those. But the avoidable fees are the delivery fees. So if, for example, I go buy a body piece, and let's click on something over here that doesn't have a 0 telling me how many are listed. And so we go to this first one. These are 200,000 gil. Now I am currently in Kugane, if you can't tell by looking around. This one here is in Kugane. These are in Limsa. You can tell by the little city emblem. You can mouse over if you don't recognize those. If I click on one of these from Limsa, it says there's going to be a 10,000 gil fee included. Now this is going to vary based on the size of the purchase. So it's really important with larger purchases. But if I jump down to something like Kugane, there's no fee. And so sometimes in the case of this, say these Limsa ones were the only ones listed, for 10,000 gil, I can literally back out of this market board and then teleport over to Limsa, which our guild house is in Limsa, our free company house. And so if I go to Limsa and I check that body piece again, that market fee will be gone. That delivery fee will be gone. And I will have saved myself 10,000 gil for the length of this load screen. So depending on how long your load screens are, I feel like mine are on the longer end because I'm running a PS4 and it just kind of is what it is. I used to deal with PS3 loading times. So I'm really happy with PS4 loading times. You guys are seeing my loading times in real time right now. This is how long it takes to get that 10,000 gil. So I run back over to the market board. And I was looking for a body piece, I was looking at this fending piece, and boom, now that fee is gone. But now the Kugane one has the 10,000 gil fee. Now if you're just buying something like, let's say I'm going to go buy an anchovy, and it's going to cost 16 gil, this one's in Ul'dah, the fee is 40. Right? it costs me more than 40 to get there. Now, if you're doing something like crafting, you're going to buy a lot of ingredients. I'll keep track of like the 4 ingredients I'm going to buy a lot of money, and then I'll check all 4 in this city, and then I'll go to the city where several of them are. I'll grab those, and I'll just go to each city once instead of going to each city for each ingredient. So if I notice, okay, that one's on Gridania, I'm in Limsa right now. Let me check my other 3 ingredients, make sure none of them are in Limsa. That way I'm only paying those teleport fees and only giving up that load screen as few times as possible. That way with 4 ingredients, I have to go a max of 4 jumps. Now, the next thing is market history. When you're pricing an item, the question is, how do I price it? How do I know if it's worth it? Because our retainers only have 20 slots. So before I log off after this, I'm going to fill these back up. And I pay extra money each month so that I can have more than 2 retainers. That's like an extra $1 a month on your subscription. And so you can go here and it's like, well, I don't know if these are worth my slots. I try to keep mine above 1,000. When I've been really active, I try to keep them above 5,000 or 10,000. But you also want to pay attention to how often they sell. Because something that sells for 1 million gil but only sells once every 2 months, you may never collect on that, because once every 2 months, one person's going to buy it. And if yours is listed at 1 million gil and somebody else is listed at 999,000 gil, you have to wait another 2 months for that item to cycle again. So demand is a factor. You definitely want to think about that. So let's go back to trying to sell these gloves. We put them up for sale and we go to compare prices. Now compare prices here, you see these go for 900, so it wouldn't meet my minimum. Now your minimum can be wherever it is. I only set a minimum because you're capped at the number of auctions you can have per character. So we go in here and we see, okay, 900 is what it's going for. Now if this price is really low, like say this price was 300 and then the next one up was 2250, I might actually back out of this, and I don't know why the interface doesn't allow this. I want to be able to right click and buy it right now, but I can't. So I would back out, go to the market board, especially in Limsa. I would buy that one up for 300 and then I would relist it at, let's say, 2150. Okay, and then that way if that one sells, I make my money, and then I put up my second one at 2150 and I make my money there. As opposed to right now, I'd have to list mine at like 890. And then how do you know if this is even a good price? Sometimes you click on an item and there's only one listed, or worse yet, none listed. Then you're just guessing. I know what the vendor price is, but how do I know what to sell it for? There's a button over here that says history. So we go to history and it will show you all the recent purchases. You can see the time, you can see the date, and you can see who bought it, okay? You can actually see that I bought this for 1,000 gil, so I definitely shouldn't sell it for 900 because I will be losing money. That's me. So you can see that these sold for this. Now, why would somebody buy multiple of these? Because actually below 3,000 gil, these are profitable to desynth. So that's a side thing, another conversation. But that tells you, okay, this guy right here could be responsible for driving up the price in some cases. So if these prices were sitting up at 6,000 or 7,000 and they were all 1 or 2 retainer names, I would guess that Nicholas Crafter had bought all these up and was selling them at a profit, which means I know how low he'll go because I know what Nicholas paid. And so there's a lot you can tell from this. This also tells me, look, I can see that most of these, I'm shooting this on the 15th, and you can see that this page is full entirely from the last 3 days. Now, if I instead go to like the Emperor fish here, which never seems to carry any value, it's going for 290 right now. There's a bunch bought on 313 and 312, but then it jumps all the way back to 222. And some of these items you'll see, they get way more abstract than that. So sometimes you'll see items that you can see back months, and that means they just don't turn very often, especially things like housing items. And so that tells you that maybe those aren't worth listing. And that tells you the likelihood, if all of these things look like they sell once a day, maybe twice a day, at least a couple times a week means there's a good chance that this entire stock is going to rotate as long as it's the lowest price. And so every time, once in a while, I'll go in and once a week, I'll say like this fending has been up. It's Friday. I put this fending up on Monday. So I'll go in and I'll go to adjust price and say, I wonder why it hasn't sold. I'll say compare prices. Well, it doesn't look like it's low there. What's the history here? Oh, the history is that only high qualities are selling. So maybe I need to be a little bit lower. And then I might choose to say something like, let's drop it to 54,000 and see if that 2,000 drops. drops. But keep in mind that some items, especially things like pets, price is not the issue, demand is. I'm willing to pay up to a certain amount for a new pet that I want. You making it lower doesn't change when I search it. So lowering the price, dropping this to 1 GIL doesn't mean it will sell today. There's still an issue of demand. Maybe the QRS of Fending is just not that in demand when it's not high quality. And so that's something you want to definitely pay attention to with market history as you start to understand, why are things sitting up here? Why are they taking up my slots versus, especially when you talk about, okay, all my retainers are at 20 of 20, what do I list next? What do I vendor? What do I hold on to? Things like that. And that brings us to undercutting. How much should you undercut? And this is the final piece of this. This is incredibly important to think about. So if we go to like this paralyzed potion and we adjust it, right? 38.69, mine's listed for 38.70. They undercut me by 1 GIL. Why did they do that? Now what they could have done is they could have done like 1,000 GIL, right? And then they would have definitely been way under me. But the problem with that is then if I go check it and I see they're at 1,000 GIL and I have the same mentality, I might say, well, how about 800 GIL? And we just race each other to the bottom. And next thing you know, we're selling this thing at vendor price. We've crashed our own market. Now, if the reason it hasn't been selling this whole time is because potent paralyzing potions are only needed every so often. Maybe they're only needed, depending on what the item is. Don't think about this particular item, but maybe there's an item that's only useful when people are leveling crafters, or when people are leveling up beast tribes, or when somebody's leveling up a scholar or a ninja or whatever. It doesn't matter. If that item is only useful sometimes and the demand is the issue, then just leave it at the price. And undercutting by somebody by 1 is good. You're protecting, me and this person are protecting each other by undercutting by 1. Gary L here did the right thing, undercutting me by a minimal amount. It may not always be 1 if you don't like 1, but definitely not more than 10%. So if I undercut them by more than 300 GIL, I'm crashing the market. It doesn't make any sense, because if I undercut them by 50 GIL, somebody will load this up and will still buy my auction. So I am not only hurting the price by going down by 50 GIL, but I'm hurting the whole market, because now if Gary L logs on while I'm offline, they may undercut me by another 50 GIL. Well, if I'd undercut them by 300 and they undercut me by 300, you're bottoming out the market too quickly. And so definitely be careful not to crash your market. Another thing to pay attention to is quantity. Undercutting, you also want to pay attention to quantity. They're at 38.69, I'm at 38.70, but I'm selling 1. So somebody right now has to pay 11,607 GIL plus possibly a delivery fee if they're not in Limsa and they don't want to go to Limsa, or they don't know about delivery fees. And so they're going to pay 11,000. Well, if this is needed as an ingredient for something, or it's a piece of materia where they just want to slot the 1 materia is especially common like this. You know, it's, if we go look at, let's list a strength materia 5 here. Strength materia 5, I have 26. Nobody wants 26 strength materia 5s. So at 660, there's a guy listing 11. There's another guy here listing 1. Who do you think is going to sell? You'll notice Tenry gave up 2 slots. It is likely that Tenry sells both of these before somebody's willing to pay 72.60, use one of them, and then get stuck with 10 in their inventory. It is very rare that somebody's like, you know what I really need right now is 11 of the same materia right now. That doesn't make any sense. And the other thing is that you'll notice that these people are also all selling at vendor price. So what I can actually do is, if I think that that's ever going to go back up, right? Just as a little side note that I wasn't in my original script, if I kind of open up my inventory here, that was strength materia 5. And this is materia 5. Oh, not the number 5. V. Always leave partial search on, by the way. So if you're running across something that you don't know how to spell, just stop spelling it where you don't know. So if I can't remember, does strength have a G in it? I can always go Estar, I think it's an N, and then I can leave it and it'll pull up the word strength. Okay, I can see that that's, how do you spell materia? M-A-T something. Okay, and then it's going to pull up strength materia. This is close enough. And then I don't have to know how to spell it after that. So this guy for 72.60, I can buy this. And the beauty of buying this is that when I buy this, that 72.60, if I want that back, I can right click in my retainer and sell that item and get that money back immediately. So in trade for not needing the money right now, I can sit on that, right? And then if those ever go up in price, I can sell it, or I can use it, or I can, right? And it's totally fixed. It's just as good as liquid currency. It's not like, oh, I bought up this much fabric and it has this kind of value when I list it and I let it sit for a week. It's like, no, that materia, if I want that back, I can literally go to sell items on here, and then I can right click and I can sell this entire stack, and it's gone. And 24,000 gil just entered my inventory, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather hold on to the 37 and see if that price ever recovers, if that ever goes up in value, because it doesn't cost me anything but a slot to hold on to that. And so that's kind of my basic mentality on undercutting. Now, we could talk a lot more about things like market history and undercutting and market trends and things like these. All are just simple economics. If you guys are interested in that, definitely leave your questions and comments down below. I'm totally interested in us kind of talking about game economies and why they're different than real economies, but where some lessons that you learn in a basic economy class or a basic understanding of capitalism class or something like that, some of that does carry over to this game, and you need to understand why parts of those lessons work and why parts of them don't if you're going to start trying to make money in these games. Now, Final Fantasy is one game where I particularly don't really try to make money because I don't see any purpose for it. It's just a score, and you can drive it as high as you want because there's no use for gil in the game right now. But should that ever change, I'll probably regret the fact that I've been sitting here knowing how to make gil, too lazy to actually do the work to make gil, because it does take a little bit of work, and now I'm not going to have any. So if they ever release any real use for gil, then I think Bryan and I are going to suddenly be wondering why we chose to each, I think between us, we usually sit somewhere between like 5 and maybe Bryan's been as high as 15. I've been as high as 10. And once I get up to about 10 million, I actually will sometimes even stop listing things. So if you're somebody who's interested in making money, let us know, because Bryan and I may not make those videos if left to our own devices because we don't personally do it, but it is something that we're happy to share. What does work for us, things we've been made aware of, and lessons that can bring you success if making gil in this game is something that really interests you. Maybe it's glamour, maybe you want to buy a house, having them is really wonderful, and definitely let us know in the comments below. My name's Chris with Work To Game. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I look forward to talking with you in those comments section. Thank you so much for hitting like and subscribe and all that mess, and I will see you next time.
Hey guys, it's me. Oh, well, if you don't know me, my name's Terry. I'm a beautiful Tyrannosaurus from Texas, and it just doesn't get more country than that. I tell you what, I grew up in these parts, I was resurrected by a ghost, and that ghost told me that I needed to come out and hang out on Work To Game's YouTube channel. So tell everybody they should totally hit that thumbs up. Thumbs down make Terry hungry. It makes me hungry. You hear me? Hungry. Anyway, Terry, just keep it together. Keep it together, Terry. All right, guys. So, with that, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit subscribe if you haven't already to see more of me and my beautiful nose. Okay. All right. Good talking to you. I'll see you guys soon. I'll see you real soon. Terry, the Tyrannosaurus from Texas.